Some huge news to go over today is the Pittsburgh Steelers have made a very sneaky signing. As not only did they make a very interesting signing, they made multiple moves, including getting rid of somebody that a lot of fans are very familiar with. We'll break down exactly what these moves are and discuss what they mean going forward as well as a bunch of other updates ahead of what's going to be a crucial week. But before we get into it all, folks, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolute beasts of the support. It truly means the world to me. And we're on the road to the big goal of 5,000 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot to go over today. And obviously, Steelers, they are making a bunch of moves. Now, they're coming off a pretty brutal loss. All eyes are on Aaron Rodgers, how he's going to bounce back, Mike Tomlin, all these different things. But they have made a flurry of moves here, and let's start with a couple of interesting ones. Now, let's start with the one on Juan Thornhill. So first came out from Ian Rappaport, and we're going to break down one of their sneaky signings they made. But the Steelers have released veteran safety Juan Thornhill, per me, and Mike Garafolo. And he now heads to waivers for a fresh start. If he clears, he'll be a free agent. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Juan Thornhill. He actually has played there's a lot of teams out there. I think the Bengals are interested in him, and there's just a lot of teams out there that are interested in Juan Thornhill because of the fact that he has NFL experience. And we're going to dive into who they claimed in a minute here, but the original kind of consensus here is, of course, we know Juan Thornhill was a fairly experienced safety. Now, the Steelers have went with Jaylen Ramsey at safety. They've went with a bunch of other guys, and Juan Thornhill hasn't gotten a ton of look this specific, obviously this season, but he's only 30 years old. There's going to be some teams out there that are interested in Juan Thornhill. And obviously played this year for the Steelers 9 games. Previous years, obviously played with the Kansas City Chiefs, played with the Cleveland Browns. And he wasn't around the Steelers for a while, but he was around the team in general. He started 1 game for them this year. But this guy is a veteran, and he's someone that's had some decent years in Kansas City, had some okay years with the Cleveland Browns. And ultimately now he transitions to being a free agent once again, which is, it's a little bit interesting. Now, at the same time, you can see here, they claim defensive back Sebastian Castro off of the waivers from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this one is also, this is the one I really like because, of course, Juan Thornhill, he's new to the Steelers. Of course, he was not really a huge acquisition, but he was someone who, again, Juan Thornhill was a starter at the NFL level for years, up until this year, really, when he hasn't really been starting. Sebastian Castro, this guy can play ball. And you can see here the Steelers claimed him off of waivers after he was released by the Bucs. He began the season on the Steelers practice squad, but was signed to the Buccaneers 53-man roster on September 30th. He went undrafted, but in college there, he appeared in 53 games, started 32 of them, had a ton of tackles, and of course, safety Juan Thornhill was acquired as an unrestricted free agent in the offseason, and Thornhill has started played 96 games and started 75 of them. And you can get some of Juan Thornhill's stats down there at the bottom. Someone that has been around a while in the NFL, even though not for the Steelers. But again, when this move first happened, because of course they released Juan Thornhill because of Jaylen Ramsey's move to free safety, people thought it was going to be to activate rookie Will Howard. And it wasn't. It was for the signing of Sebastian Castro. And Castro was interesting because you can see this here. He was at one point viewed as a top prospect at safety, went undrafted in April, and then went on a sign with the Steelers. Ultimately, was taken by the Bucs and all these different things. With the depth chart at safety somewhat lacking behind Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, and Juan Thornhill, when he first joined the team, there was some thought he could have found his way. Now, of course, we know Minkah Fitzpatrick is way gone. But at the time when, way back then, they didn't have room for him. Now, they do have room for him. Now, with Tampa Bay, in case you're curious with that, didn't really see much time. And clearly, the Steelers are happy with Jaylen Ramsey. They're happy with Kyle Duggar. And I think you had to be pretty ecstatic if you're the Steelers from what you've seen from Jaylen Ramsey and what you've seen from Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar's looked really good, and the defense in general has looked better since he came over. Jaylen Ramsey's looked fine at safety, and you also have a ton of depth. You have Jabril Peppers, who we'll see what happens when he comes back, where everything shakes out, and Chuck Clark, who's been really bad this year. But there's no room for no room for Juan Thornhill either. But now you get, Sebastian Castro. I like having the depth. Now, his impact's not going to be necessarily at the safety position. Right now, he could still play there. However, special teams. Castro could certainly make an impact on special teams, though. While he only appeared in the Buccaneers kick coverage unit, he got playing time on the kick return, punt coverage, punt return, and field goal extra point block units during the preseason with Pittsburgh. And the good news about Castro is that he's a rookie. He's not going to be looking for a ton of time, and they can find spots for him, whether that be with the special teams, whether that just be somebody to learn from guys like Jaylen Ramsey, learn from guys like Kyle Duggar. And Juan Thornhill, at 30 years old, probably wasn't going to be able to, he wouldn't want to stick around. Whereas Sebastian Castro at 25, he can mess around a little bit, play in the special teams, learn from some really good safeties in Kyle Duggar, learn from just the veteran leadership of Jalen Ramsey, even though, of course, he's been a cornerback for most of his career. I really like the move. And it's, again, he is somebody that, is it an insane signing that's going to change the landscape of this team heading into, down the stretch? No, but it's always nice to have depth. And with the way the injuries have been happening to guys like Darius Slay, and hopefully no more injuries to anybody else, but injuries are real. And I'm happy the Steelers made a little bit of a sneaky move here. And I know some fans might not be happy that Juan Thornhill is gone because he was pretty, he was signed in the offseason as unrestricted free agent. He was pretty good with some other teams. There was never going to be room for him. Whereas Castro, you can work with it. He is an older rookie, but you can work with it. He's someone who doesn't have a ton of experience at the NFL level, so he can actually gain that. And also, of course, be used on the special teams. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Are you upset that Juan Thornhill is gone? Do you think that was a waste of a wave because of the fact that he started a bunch of games for the Chiefs, started a bunch of games for the Browns? Or do you think that they should have, stuck with him and that they should have, went with it and see what happens once, Jabril Peppers comes back? Ultimately, they have a ton of safeties, right? Chuck Clark, Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar, Jalen Ramsey. It's hard to find room for Juan Thornhill. I'm sure a lot of this comes down to Juan Thornhill wanting a fresh start as well. But Sebastian Castro, let him have some time. Let him have some time after you claim him off of waivers. Probably not in games yet, but special teams and things like that. A couple other things to go over today. Now, you can see here the Steelers may be getting some good news with the return of Joe Burrow and Cincy for potentially both Ravens games. So, in case you missed it, Joe Burrow is practicing now. His 21-day window has opened, and he's going to be looking to return against the Ravens on Thanksgiving, November 17th, or 27th, I believe it is, the 27th, around that time, so around Thanksgiving. And this is good and bad. Obviously, the Bengals could make a push to try to beat the Steelers. It is within the division team, so at first you might say, that's not a great update, that's bad. However, if the Steelers want to stay ahead of the Ravens, the Bengals having Joe Burrow is probably going to be the team to stop them in their path. And there's 2 Ravens games, and for the Bengals, they can go out and try to make a playoff push themselves. But I think if you're the Steelers, you'd rather the Bengals be fully healthy against the Ravens rather than a couple cakewalk games with, Joe Flacco and how bad the Bengals defense has been. So it's going to be interesting to see there. And I mean, down the stretch, it's going to be wild. Yesterday's game was really, really rough. And you have Mike Tomlin asking, how would you assess Aaron Rodgers' game? And he said, how would you? And then says next, because obviously he doesn't want to say and call him out directly for being bad. But Mike Tomlin, he needs to step up as well. Like, everybody needs to step up. It was pretty obvious how bad that game was yesterday. Obviously, their offense is going to have some work to do. It hasn't been the biggest issue this year. It was more in their defense. But now that the defense is stepping up a little bit, had a ton of stops against the Chargers, we need to see how this offense steps up in lieu of not getting a WR2 at the deadline and relying on Calvin Austin to be that guy who hopefully will be able to fill the void for, DK Metcalf. Not fill the void in the sense of take over his spot in his absence, but make himself more of a threat so that way DK can get open. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on these moves. A bunch of them. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.